Talmud. He is international consultant in creative and behavior education, unconscious bias, coaching, behavior change, and many more things. We welcome you to our conference, and we all are very excited to know some things about positive psychology.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me here. Okay, so I'm very happy to be speaking with you all this morning. And what we're going to talk about is positive psychology, positive self-talk, self-image, and self-esteem. Now, you know a bit about me already. Evolve Generation co-founder, and it's a community which builds emotional resilience in children, teens, and young people. I'm also CEO of a community interest company and work as an international consultant. So it's going to be pretty organic, but also structured, which is how I like to work anyway. So a brief overview of what we're going to talk about is emotional awareness, defining positive psychology, the importance of positive self-talk, how you see yourself, confidence versus self-esteem. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do, everyone who's watching, just to have a bit of an emotional check-in, a bit of an emotional awareness. So firstly, just be aware of your body at the minute. How does your body feel? Be aware of how you're breathing. At what pace are you breathing? How relaxed is your breathing at this moment in time? And how are you currently feeling? And how were you feeling prior to engaging in this amazing conference? Now also reflect on your thought process, what you're currently thinking. And what was your thought process prior to engaging this morning? And now just have a look at what the narrative is in your head, what you're saying to yourself, what conversation you're having with yourself. Just take a second. Okay, brilliant. So just as a definition, okay? So positive psychology is the scientific study of what makes life most worth living, focusing on both individual and societal well-being. It studies positive subjective experience, positive individual traits, and positive institutions. It aims to improve quality of life. So the importance of positive self-talk, the inner conversation. So there's a saying that we are nothing but our thoughts and our feelings. So what you say to yourself, what you think about yourself, essentially is who you are. So if you just look at that internal narrative, the inner narrative, what do we say to ourselves on a daily basis? How do we say it? What do we tell ourselves? If we say to ourselves, I feel tired, I feel drained, I feel awful, then that's the internal subconscious message we send to ourselves. That's what we're saying to ourselves, and therefore that's how we feel. If we reverse that, we counter that, we have positive affirmations. I know I feel great today. I'm gonna have an amazing day today. This day's gonna be really good. It's very, very important because this internal thought process actually sets the framework for how you feel internally, and therefore how you engage with the world. And also, whose voice is speaking? Is it your voice? Has it always been your voice? Now, often we have echoes in our minds of things that have been said to us. And often the things that stick into our mind are the things which maybe don't make us feel so nice. So if anywhere in your journey, someone's told you, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. You're not quite good enough to do that. That's not for you. That really isn't your area. These things stick with us, okay? And especially if we hear them early on in our childhood development, they become part of our internal narrative. Now, often, if you notice that, we have positive experiences that make us feel good and ones that don't make us feel so good. Now, often our mind goes to the things that don't make us feel good. And that's because the relationship we have with fear, our brains are hardwired to remember the things which make us feel frightened or uncomfortable. have that kind of fear factor to kind of hold it. Okay, don't do that again. Don't go there again. You know, a bit like from caveman days. You know, fire burns. Don't go into the fire. So we retain the things which don't make us feel good as a defense mechanism. But the problem is, we tend to focus there and it becomes a bit polarized. So in our journey, that kind of resonates in our minds, and we have those feel good feelings, but we tend to lean there. So when you really look at that internal narrative and say, well, actually, is this my voice? Is this what I want to be saying to myself? Is this how I want to be feeling today? Is this what I want? And you examine that voice, you can then maybe say, well, actually, this isn't what I want. I don't want to be having this conversation with myself, but how do I change it? And then it comes into cognitive restructuring, changing the conversation. Now, you need to have an equal value proposition in your mind's eye. So if you look at things you know want to change, maybe you want to change your outlook on particular areas. You want to change how you feel about yourself, maybe how you feel about doing a particular thing. Think about what you can say to yourself. Well, actually, I am able, I am confident, and I'm going to be successful in what I do. To have this internal narrative, to have this affirmation, this assumption, to challenge the limiting beliefs and supplant them with positive upholding beliefs, uplifting beliefs. To do this as a daily practice, to have this narrative internally. If you persist with the assumption, eventually it will supplant it. But it's not just as simple as that, right? You know, you can have many kind of self-help vehicles, and you know, it says to talk positively to yourself, and sometimes you feel like it doesn't quite work. You know, so why is that? We'll look a bit at that as well. So the inner perception of yourself creates the external expression of who you are. So to really shift the dynamic, to really change it, you really have to have an emotional investment into the change you want to make. Okay, you have to have a deep embedded emotional investment into it. So we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. So imagine two people leave the same house at virtually the same time. One person has an outlook of, you know, I'm not feeling good today. This day isn't going to be great. I'm not going to have good experiences. I've got to do this thing. I'm not going to like it. Guaranteed that will be the experience that they have. The second person says, you know what? I'm ready for today. Whatever happens, I'm going to be open to it. I'm really looking forward to what comes today. And that doesn't mean that person won't be met with challenge, but the way in which that challenge is perceived by them will change entirely how they engage with it and what the outcome will be. Your reactions to life is your experience of the world. Let me just check a few questions in the chat here. That's right, personal affirmations, absolutely. Now this is where the emotional reactions come in. So you have choice, not reaction. Okay, so often we have a foundation where something happens and we react to it, and it becomes habitual. You know, someone bumps into you and they're a bit aggressive, we react to it. You know, we have a feeling, we carry the energy. You know, they'll be aggressive towards me, and then we go in. Maybe we're in a bit of a bad mood. You know, we don't feel good about it. Maybe you get a phone call, isn't a very good phone call. You get an email, a work colleague, a friend, and you feel like, oh. But from the position of choice, you can have impetus. So when things come to you, you don't have to react. You can absorb, consider, and then give a response. And let's talk a bit about cause and effect. You can never be part of the cause or part of the effect. If you react, you're just part of the effect. If you choose, you become the cause. And just talking a bit about karma, and you know, psychology and counseling and some of the propositions of spirituality coexist, right? Because you could say, you know, spirituality in terms is almost ancient existential psychology. From one perspective, you could look at it that way. So if you imagine, you know, karma, in my understanding, I'm by no means an expert, this means your action. You did it. It doesn't come from a kind of punitive punishment perspective. It literally just means cause and effect. Okay, so from position of choice, you become the cause, not the effect. So something happens, you take a moment and you choose. Where do I go from here? I actually don't want to respond that way. You come back to the center. But again, what's the framework of that center? And again, the question comes, well, what do you want? No, what do you really want? And that can be a big question, right? A big question that you keep asking and maybe never really feel like you have the answer to. Well, let's just maybe take it back a bit. Yeah. So maybe it's a case of, what do I want now? What do I want right now? Keep it simple. Start simple, then build. You don't have to answer the ultimate question immediately. What do I want now? Well, actually, right now, I'd love a different job. Okay. Well, right now, I'd love to be on holiday somewhere. Right now, I'd like to do that thing that I've never done before. Okay. Start there. Okay. What is your immediate want? Because if it's a true want, you can then invest in it. And this is where it ties back in with what you say to yourself. So let's just say you say, you know what, I really want to be in a job. I really want that job. Okay, well, if you had that job, how would your life be different? Well, I'd have more money. Well, how would that benefit you? Maybe I'd be able to do more things. I'd have more financial security. I wouldn't be as stressed. I'd be able to support my family more. I'd be able to do this. Okay, fantastic. So let's just imagine that you have that ideal job. Really, how would your friends respond to you? How would your family respond to you? How would their faces be different? What would they say to you? What kind of conversations would they have with you? What kind of conversations would you have with yourself? When you get into that emotive experience of the thing desired, and then you embed that with a new beliefs which are compliant and congruent with that internal quest, that internal affirmation, the things you say to yourself become more tangible. Okay, and it isn't just a list or things that you say to yourself that you don't really believe in or feel invested in. Real question: how to stay calm around negative people. So it's changing, and I had this conversation the other day with someone. It's changing the relationship with how you engage with the world. So let's look at positive and negative. So it's different, for example, in terms of positive and negative neutrons and polarities. When we look at it in terms of human behavior, just from my opinion, so I've let people in. Just from my opinion, it's more about there isn't a positive or negative. It's more about there's just energy. And the way in which we receive that energy determines what the experience it is for us. So, for example, if we engage with someone who maybe they don't feel too good about themselves, and therefore they don't have a good outlook in the world. So when they engage with you, that's the basis they're coming from. So actually, they're not talking about you, they're talking about themselves. So when they say negative things to you, engage with you in a negative way, it's how they feel about themselves. They're expressing themselves to you. And in that time, it's actually pulling back. And again, the same principle. If they're sarcastic, well, actually, that's how they feel about themselves, and they're trying to communicate that to you. So the question always comes back to, well, how do you want to feel, and how do you feel? And having a clear sense of that, and choosing how you feel. When you wake up, how do you feel? When you sleep, how do you feel? When you want to learn different language, you have lessons, but also you can sleep, because it embeds in your subconscious if you sleep with things playing to you. Send a message to yourself. Before you go to sleep, affirm who you are. Emotively, fall asleep in the feeling, wake up, speak it to yourself. So when you engage with people and they come across negatively or aggressive, you just hold your center. And here's the amazing thing about the gift and the curse. We are incredibly sensitive and subjective. So if it rains, we get wet. If it's hot, we feel sun. Again, these are the things. We have a choice about where we go from there. Once we have engaged in the feeling, what happens next? You know, do we go, oh, it's so wet, I hate this, but we say, okay, I feel wet now. I can't do anything about feeling wet, but what do I want to do now? I can dry off, I can get an umbrella, I can take shelter. It's really, really hot. I can't control the sun, but I can control how I respond to it. I can take shelter, I can change my clothes. You know, you always have that choice. We forget because it all happens so quickly. We don't think we have the choice. But when someone is sarcastic to you or tries to put you down, know your center. And if we kind of be dramatic about it, if we imagine, if people are so negative to us and we're so susceptible to it, if you imagine, you know, someone we've got a problem with, okay, every time we think about them, our back goes up, we get, you know, all they need to do, they don't need to say anything to us. They could just turn up outside of our house, just stand there looking at us, and we'd be, oh no, they're there. And then we then would shut down. You know, there is no external power. Any sense of self comes from within, is born within, and is then pushed out. And it comes back to living in the end and making desire as a present psychological and emotional fact. Okay. And it goes back to what I just said, live in the end. Live in the end. So go to your internal desire, your internal assumption, emotively engage with it. Okay. Then make it a present day psychological and emotional fact. So for example, let's look at success. Now, success is relative and context specific. So no one can tell you whether or not you're successful. You determine success based on who you choose to be and who you think you are, right? So for one person, having a roof over their head, coming home every day, being with their family, that's success. And to me, that's success, absolutely. Another person might be, you know what, I've got that job, I've got that six-figure salary, I've got that car, that's success. Well, yeah, it's success to them, okay? It's based on what you define. So people who are successful, they don't become successful. They're already successful subconsciously and psychologically. The habits which they practice to sustain the life that they have and to have the life that they have, they practice as a daily thing. They don't start practicing it and then reach success. They go, okay, this is who I am. This is who I am. And they live by it. You live by it. So anything you desire, live by it. You know, you might not, if you think, oh, I want to have this job, it might not be that you have that job at the immediate sense. But how would you be if you had that job? If you want to have a company, if you had that company, how would you live? What would your mindset be? How would your behaviors be? How would you engage with people? If you felt the way you wanted to feel about yourself, well, how would that be different than what you are now? Go to the end and you live it. And you live it from making those positive affirmations, having that mindset about seeing yourself as that successful person. And when you go to that center, you can really engage with those kind of more challenging elements and that negativity in a different way. So confidence versus self-esteem. So there's the argument that, you know, you can't tell people, if you tell people that they're great, you know, it doesn't do them any good. Not everyone's a winner. Not everyone can get a medal. Well, it's also the same principle that says, you know, oh, millennials, they don't know. And to me, from one perspective, you know, there's always a culture where sometimes age converts youth, where, you know, the old generation could say, oh, you youngins don't know how good you have it. You don't know what hard work is. And it's the same conversation, you know. And, you know, the young people of now are products of us, okay? So I always say, look, you have a balance. How you feel about yourself now is based on intrinsic motivation. So if no one's told you, look, I really love you, you know, I really believe in you when you were growing, I think you can really achieve what you want to achieve. No, keep trying. You can do it. You can do it. Come on, keep trying. Okay, you might not have won, but you know what? You really learned from that experience. You'll do it next time. That intrinsic motivation is what gives us that sense of self. So then when you engage with life and you face those challenges, you can fall back. And it's not about, oh, you know, everything's easy. You will face challenges, but that engagement with the challenges and your perspective on yourself is what builds that self-confidence.
Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You made some great points and we'd love to hear more, but the time is running out and we have some questions.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
Um, yeah. So the first question is that is positive psychology just about making people happy?
Well, let's look at it this way. The pursuit with mental health and emotional well-being, what is the outcome, what is the pursuit of it? And I think sometimes in the culture of the endeavors of healing and talk therapies and psychological culture, and we can forget the outcome, and we want to join to a place of actually feeling good, well-being and joy. So I would say arguably positive psychology is a means of enabling a person to feel better about themselves and feel good in themselves and having a better experience of life. So definitely.
Okay. And we have one more question, and that is positive psychology the same as positive thinking?
I'd say positive psychology is a bit more in depth, and I'd say positive thinking is possibly a component of positive psychology, because you need to think differently and you need to look at how you kind of cognitively resonate with things, how your thought processes are and where they're aligned. So I'd say it's a component of positive psychology.
Okay, and thank you so much. And one last question: that what are the three most important findings in positive psychology?
Oh, good question. Persistence. So I've got another question coming in. This question: sometimes in some situation, when you're under a lot of pressure, you lose confidence under situations. How do we gain confidence? Should I take this as it's come from a student? Um, so outcomes: if you persist with the assumption and practice daily habits, they will affect a change in behavior. And then if you also change the culture of your environment, if you do the same things, you can't expect different outcomes. This is where we can go with positive psychology. In terms of building that confidence up, always come back to the center, always come back to how you see yourself and who decides. Ask yourself the question, well, who decides who you are? Who decides how you see yourself? And so it's got to be you. So that should be your final say. You are the CEO, you're the boss of you. No one is inside your heart and your mind. You decide how you feel. And I'd say always choose life, always choose joy, always choose aspiration.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Thanks, Talmud. That was, I have to say, firstly, your voice is so relaxing, and just the way you've spoken about this, particularly liked, your starting point that you say that everyone should have, and that is, what do you want now, and start from there. Really, I mean, every question that's popping up, I see another one that just popped up, about how when you're under a lot of pressure you lose confidence. How do you respond to that, to gain confidence in that moment? I'm going to leave you with another 2 minutes with just putting your final thoughts out there and answering this question as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. So when your confidence is knocked, and I think that everyone at some point will have this experience, okay? And you might feel you start really positive and you feel good, and then maybe your confidence is just knocked. And maybe it's a particular person who has a lot of emotional weight in your life, and it knocks your confidence and you feel like you drop right back down. And here's what I say: spend time with yourself. Take time with yourself. Establish who you choose to be. And it might seem daunting, but start small. You know, firstly, look at the things that you already know make you feel good. Create an environment which is yours. Almost create a portable, I call it a portable temple. Okay, so actually, this is a good tip. A portable temple. So imagine that if you've got a smartphone, you have a playlist which are songs which make you feel good. You have somewhere in your notes quotes that you feel inspired by. You have somewhere on your YouTube link videos that motivate you. Okay. If you're out somewhere and you don't feel good, take 5 minutes, take a break. If you're work, go to the restroom. If you're studying and you have to break, go. Just take a minute, headphones in, just sit quietly and use this kind of portable temple to just bring yourself back to your center. When you're at home, ask yourself the question, how was my day today? What was good about the day, what wasn't so good about the day? This is what happened that didn't make me feel good, that knocked my confidence. Well, what is it that happened that knocked my confidence? Well, how do I feel now? How do I choose to feel? Always come back to the center. Actually, I want to feel this way. Okay, well, I'm going to go with that. But you need to give yourself space just to reflect. When you always bring it back to the center, you're not complicit, you're not caught up in everyone else. Bring it back to you and you make it a daily practice.
Thanks, Talmud. That's a lovely way to wrap up. Choose how you want to feel. It really all starts there, doesn't it? Thanks so much. This was lovely.